And we are live. Happy Friday. I'm Chris. I hope you're good. T, everyone in my family is sick. Not great. The little one got it, gave it to the mom, gave it to the big one, and then the really big one is to be determined. I hope you're great. We are 30. I'm going to let people file in, so I'll just kind of riff here, not answer any questions to start. We're 33 days from the election. We got a jobs report for September today that was very good for the economy. 254,000 jobs created in September. Unemployment rate dropped from 4.2% to 4.1%. Wage growth up. Lots of good news in there for the economy and by extension, by the way, Kamala Harris, because her fate is very much tied to how people think of the economy. I'm writing about that for my newsletter, my nightly newsletter that you can get for free. Just go over to my Substack, chrissaliza.substack.com. You can get my nightly newsletter for free. If you want to become a paid subscriber, I would love to have you. It's chrissaliza.substack.com, $6 a month, $60 a year. If you do become a paid subscriber, one of the things that you get a bunch of stuff, but one of the things you get is a free 15-minute Zoom. I mean, it's not free, it's $6, but a Zoom call, one-on-one, 15 minutes with me. I've done lots of these. They're actually really fun. Yeah, I think you should do it. I'm going to get to your questions. Let me remind you, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you need to do it. We're at a little over 44,000 on the march to 50,000. So do it if you haven't done it. It's free. I make 4 videos a week, and then I do this live stream on Fridays. So it's all to the good. You should do this. This is good. This is fun. By the way, my drink, for people who are asking, this is what I get. Venti Emperor Clouds tea, 2 Splenda, extra milk. It's not great, but it makes me feel better because I'm not drinking 900 calories, which is what I would like to do. Okay, let's get to the questions. As I always tell people, donations are not necessary. They are very welcome. If you do donate, one way to incentivize you to donate, because this is what I do for a living, so I need you to donate and support me, I will jump your question up to the front of the line and make sure I answer it. But I will do everything I can over the next 56-ish minutes to answer as many questions as I can. So if you want to donate, thank you. As a little extra special thank you, I will make sure your question goes to the top. Okay. ACAR 1994, thank you for the donation. The race continues to be in a deadlock with Harris slightly ahead in the battleground states. What would convince Trump to debate one final time? That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. So Trump is only going to do a debate if he decides, I was going to say his campaign, but really it's just if he decides it's in his best political interest. And I don't know what would make him be convinced of that, because you're right. I mean, to me at the moment, the race, if all the polling is right, Kamala Harris is ahead by a little bit. She would win with, a little under 300 electoral votes. Now, if the polling is right thing is key, because in 2016 and 2020, the national and swing state polling was wrong, and it in both of those elections underestimated Donald Trump's support. Now, I don't know if that means it will underestimate Donald Trump's support again. Maybe it's underestimating Kamala Harris's support. Don't know. But if the polling is right, she's just a little bit ahead, but it's very close. So I don't know if that's enough to get him off the sidelines and into a debate. He's utterly changeable. I've said this before. So the fact that he said he won't debate 100 times before does not mean that he won't. There is an October 23 debate that I think it's October 23rd, October 22nd or 23rd that Kamala Harris has already agreed to, CNN debate. Is it CNN? Yeah, I think it's CNN. And Trump has said he won't do it. But that is at least like one that's out there that he could agree to. I don't think he does another debate because I think he figures he's probably not going to beat Harris like a clean win in a debate. It's probably going to be neutral. He loses. So my guess is he doesn't do another one given where the polling is. But I wouldn't be stunned if he did, because he's Trump. Clarence Peterson, how do you reconcile the dramatic polling gap between Donald Trump and Kari Lake in Arizona? Yeah, That is a really good question. So it's true in a couple of these swing states. Nevada is another one where Trump and Harris are running pretty close, and the Democratic Senate nominee is crushing the Republican Senate nominee. Now, in Arizona, I get it a little bit more because Carrie Lake is a very divisive figure, ran for governor in 2022, lost, even though she said she won. Stop me if you've heard that before. So I get that she could be losing among some Republicans who are going to be for Trump, I guess, although Trump and Lake have like a very similar appeal. So that's kind of weird. I don't know. It seems to me that most of the polling I've seen suggests Senate Democratic candidates are running consistently ahead of where Kamala Harris is running in a lot of these swing states, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, which is kind of weird to me because I would assume that the Democratic Senate candidate is not going to outperform the top of the ticket. It very rarely happens. If it does happen, it's by like a point or two, not by 10 points. So I don't know the answer to that. But I have noticed it. And let me dig in a little on the numbers and see if I can sort of figure anything out. Chris, I just became a paid subscriber on Substack. How do I arrange the Zoom call? Email me, by the way, just sidebar, if you want to become a paid subscriber to me on Substack. I said this at the start, I'll say it again. You get a 15-minute one-on-one Zoom with me as part of your paid subscription. Just email me, CILLIZZAC@gmail.com. That's my email. I get it. Anybody can email me, but in this particular case, email me, let me know, and I'll send you the link. Okay. To sign up for that call. Let's see. Stephen Williams. Stephen, thank you so much for your donation. Can you discuss your thoughts on whether Republican crossovers like Liz Cheney's appearance with Harris yesterday will move the needle? So I actually did a little digging into this. Let me give you the numbers. So I went back and looked at how much of the self-identified Republican vote past Democratic presidential nominees have won first. Okay, so let me go through that. So Biden in 2020 won 6% of self-identified Republicans. Hillary Clinton won 7%. Obama in 2012 won 6%. And then Obama, and this is the high water mark for recent elections, Obama in 2008 won 9% of self-identified Republicans. Okay, so that's the context. Now, where are we now with Kamala Harris? I just grabbed 3 recent national polls. You could probably find 3 others that maybe, I think it's mostly consistent. So the 3 that I grabbed, New York Times, Harris was at 5% among self-identified Republicans. YouGov, she was at 4%, and Morning Consult, she was at 6%. So she's at the bottom end of sort of the average that Democratic nominees have won of Republican voters. What does that mean? Well, there are 2 potential ways to break that down. One is for all the Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, Adam Kinzinger attention that most Republicans are in fact not voting for Kamala Harris, that Liz Cheney does not represent Republicans more broadly. The other, and this is more positive for Harris take, is, well, a lot of people who used to be Republicans would no longer self-identify as a Republican. They're probably independents now. So that number that she's winning among Republicans may be a little deceptive in that the Republican base is not now what the Republican base was even a decade ago. So it kind of depends on where you land on that. But those are at least the numbers so that you have them. Good question. Matt Aarons. Matt, thank you as always for the donation. Very much appreciated. And by the way, folks, if you're just joining, donations not necessary, very welcome. This is what I do for a living. This, YouTube, and my Substack, which is on this computer over here that you can't see. So if you want to support what I'm doing and you want to see more of it, I need your financial help. It's just that simple. It's not complicated. It's just me. Somebody asked me, like, what's your team like on these things? So I'm like, the team is me, myself, and I. So thank you, Matt, for your support. Matt asks, what do you think about the independent candidate, Dan Osborne, in the Nebraska U.S. Senate race? If he wins, would he caucus with Democrats? He might get to decide which party has the majority. So it's really, really interesting. That race, you would not think Nebraska is a competitive race because it's a really Republican state in a presidential year. Deb Fischer, who's the Republican senator, and Dan Osborne, who is an independent candidate, and there is no Democratic candidate, which is super, super interesting. That race is sort of close. National Republicans are spending money on that race now, which means they don't spend money on things that aren't close. So what are my conclusions? I think Osborne has benefited from running under the radar to this point, right? I think it's a little more dangerous now that people have woken up to the fact that this is a real race, because Nebraska is a Republican state in a presidential year, right? So reminding Republicans that they need to go out and vote for Deb Fischer, it probably helps, right? I hope that makes some sense to you. Like, it just, if it's a sleeper race, nobody pays attention. Republicans are like, well, Deb Fischer will just win. Well, now they know she's in a real race. So that's number one. Number two, so Osborne was on Morning Joe, I think it was this morning, and they asked him whether he would caucus with Republicans or Democrats if he won, and he said he would caucus with neither. Like, I don't know if that actually can work. Like, all these independents, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, Angus King in Maine, they all caucus with one party or the other. All of them caucus with Democrats, by the way. But it's very hard to just be your own one caucus. Like, I know that's a smart thing for him to say politically. I just don't know if it would actually work in reality. So I think he's going to get pressed more on that. Now, maybe he'll just continue to say, I'm going to caucus on my own. Maybe, because he knows if he says he's going to caucus with Democrats, he'll lose. So he can't say that. And if he's going to caucus with the Republicans, well, then why would you not just vote for Deb Fischer? So it's a hard question for him to answer, but he's going to keep getting asked it. So I am a little bit skeptical. I think that Osborne is going to come closer than you would have thought an independent running against Deb Fischer in Nebraska in a presidential year would, but I don't think he's going to win. I hope that answers your question. And Matt, as always, thank you for the donation. Okay, more questions. Jeff Wolf. By the way, folks, ask your questions. That's the only way that I can make this thing happen. I don't want to just talk to myself. Jeff Wolf, over the years, the national debt has been increasing. How important do you think it is to control it, and what steps should be taken to do so? Well, let me take off my personal hat and just do my political analyst hat. It has become less and less of a politically salient issue. Go back to 2012. Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan talked all the time about the debt and deficit spending, how it was getting out of control, how we were burdening our kids and their kids. John McCain talked about it a lot in 2000. Donald Trump doesn't really talk about it at all. In fact, Donald Trump added $7.4 trillion to the national debt in the 4 years he was president. Do I think it matters? Yeah, I think it matters because the debt is massive. In fact, I've talked to some people who say that they say that the debt is 34 trillion. That's like the official number, but the actual debt, when you take all that we owe, is like 134 trillion. Yeah, that's obviously a problem when a lot of our debt is owned by China. But politically speaking, it hasn't broken through. That's sort of the situation. PE, thank you for your donation. Very kind and no question. Just a donation. That's so nice. Thank you. Peter Kiefel, Jack Smith filing puts January 6th VP Senate president back in focus. Harris could oversee her own election. Trump raises hell, or Trump's election. Democrats do a Republican and contest states. Thoughts? I mean, yes, Donald Trump will raise hell if Kamala Harris oversees the Electoral College vote count that elects her president. But she's the sitting vice president. So constitutionally, that's what she has to do. I do not see Democrats contesting the election if Donald Trump wins, although I've been surprised before and I could be surprised again. But yeah, look, Donald Trump, if he loses, is going to say that he won. We know that. That is as close to a fact as you can get. I don't think Sorry, microphone. I don't think Democrats will do the same, but we'll see. Sherry Zimmerman, Chris, I so appreciate your fair commentary where both sides of my divided family and friends can discuss your thoughts on hot topic issues in our beloved country. Keep up the great work. That's so nice. I'm trying. Caught hell this week on YouTube for saying that I thought JD Vance won the debate, but I thought JD Vance won the debate. I'm always going to tell it to you the way I see it. I'm not always going to be right? I mean, been wrong plenty of times. But I'm going to give you my unvarnished opinion, not because I know it's what you want to hear. One of the things I've looked at a lot of political channels on YouTube, and one of the things I've noticed is some of the biggest ones, they just tell people what they want to hear. Democrats are actually doing great. The media is not covering it. Kamala Harris is going to win in a landslide. I don't think that's true. And even though me telling you that would probably get some of you at least to make it more likely you'd subscribe to me or even donate money to me, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. If you want that, trust me, I've looked. There are lots and lots and lots of people doing that on the internet. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it on YouTube. I'm not doing it on Substack. I'm going to give you my unvarnished opinion, my authentic take, not based on party loyalty, not based on trying to drive subscribers, not based on trying to make money, based on what I think is actually happening. So if you like that, if you want to support that, please. But what I always say to people, don't subscribe here and certainly don't subscribe at Substack, either one. If the bar for you subscribing is, I have to agree with everything this guy says or writes, don't subscribe, because you're not going to agree with everything I say or write. And nor is that my goal, to provide you content that I know will agree with everything that you think. No, I want to challenge your assumptions. I want to show you that there are smart people who disagree with you. There are people who have different takes than you, and that's okay. Anyway, thank you for letting me go on that rant. Dwight Baldwin. Dwight, thank you so much for your donation. Very much appreciated. His question goes like this. What impact to the election if Israel versus Iran conflict continues to escalate? Really good question. So I think it's important to note that the average American is not super engaged in like what's happening in the Middle East. They're vaguely aware of it, but they're not like, they don't know all the details of everything that's happening. What I think, though, is that chaos or a feeling that things are out of control in the world helps Donald Trump and hurts Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is currently the vice president of the United States. And while she has a very limited ability to control what Israel does or Iran does, I still think Trump's entire premise of his campaign is things are really bad, things are going to hell, and if you don't elect me, that's only going to get worse. Well, that message only works if there's at least some evidence that things are out of control or people feel like things are out of control. So the more chaos around the world, the better for him. Let's see. Justin Ziegler. Justin, thank you so much for your donation. Justin asks, what is the impact of Hurricane Helene, praying for the victims, will have on the election and on Harris, given the criticism of the Biden administration? How does the Jack Smith filing affect things? I don't think the Jack Smith filing affects much. I think if you were really into it and you read the whole thing, you're probably already voting for Kamala Harris, and you're definitely not voting for Donald Trump. I think it is close to disqualifying the way in which Trump behaved after the election, as documented in the Jack Smith filing and other reporting that we've seen. But the average undecided voter does not. Hurricane Helene. So North Carolina is a swing state. Obviously, Asheville and Western North Carolina were hit really, really hard by this storm. I think the question is, how up and running are the voting apparati before the election? Obviously, they have more pressing concerns right now, like water, food, electricity. And I don't know, right? The election's in 33 days. I don't know what it looks like in, let's say, 25 days. Do things get back a little to normal or not? Have people moved out of the state and they're not coming back until after the election because their house has been, knocked down or washed away? I don't know. Those are the questions I think you have to ask. And it's just such a big unknown. Let's see. I'm going to keep going. Luke Growth. Do you think we're going to see more endorsements from prominent Republicans endorsing Harris, or no, considering it seems to keep happening? Not really. Like George W. Bush is not going to endorse. I don't think. I mean, I guess he could, but I think it's very unlikely. Mitt Romney has said he's repeatedly resisted pressure to endorse. So I don't think we're gonna see any more prominent endorsements. And just to refer to the point I made before, remember this. In 2020, Joe Biden got 6% of Republican votes. In 2016, Hillary Clinton got 7%. In 2012, Obama got 6%. And in 2008, Obama got 9%. In three of the most recent national polls I looked at, Harris is at 5%, 4%, and 6% among Republicans. So it's not like she's winning 12, 14, 15% of Republicans. She's not. So just keep that in mind. Patrick Murray, after yesterday's video on Trump's health, do you still think he's going to run in 2028 if he loses? Yeah, so thank you for referencing that video. I really like that video. It didn't do as well as I would have thought, but I thought it was a good, timely video. Yes, he absolutely is going to run in 2028 if he loses, just depending on his health. I mean, what that video was about was we don't know almost anything about Donald Trump's health, which is bad in a vacuum, but really bad when he would be 82 years old if he served a full 4-year term. But if Trump's health holds out, if he is roughly in the same health physically and mentally that he is today-ish, I think he runs again. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not in the same health. But if he is, I think he runs again. Let me remind people, we have 470 people live on this. Awesome. We only have 79 likes. Just go ahead and hit the thumbs up, people, and keep the questions coming. Julio J, do you think that American exceptionalism has become an excuse that prevents us from understanding how bad things actually have gotten and put hard work towards society level improvement? Oh, that's a deep question. I don't know is the short answer. I mean, I do think the idea that we're always the shining city on the hill and that we always have the right of arguments, I think that's probably at least worth investigating based on the last 50 or 100 years. But I don't know if that puts limits on our ability to achieve and do new things. I mean, I do think our inability to recognize our common humanity, that we've got a lot in common with each other, a lot more than we have difference with each other, even if we are politically not aligned. I think that is not great. I think that gets in the way of us sort of having honest conversations and moving forward in some kind of civil way. Yeah. Let's see. Justin Ziegler, thank you again for a donation. Justin says, how do polls find a 50-50 split on who won the debate, but Walz saw his popularity jump significantly when compared to J.D. Vance? Do you think the port union will restart the strike in January? I don't know about the union strike. I mean, I think it's a good thing for Kamala Harris that it was a 3-day strike. I don't know if they'll restart it in January, although they have most leverage right now. I think that the reason polls find a 50-50 split, but Walz's favorability went up is because less people knew Walz going in than knew J.D. Vance. So as he gets better known, his favorability numbers will go up a little bit. Vance was a more known commodity prior. That'd be my short answer. I hope that makes sense. The notorious CRG, thank you for the donation. I know you made a video about this already, but why do you think the national media is not as focused on Trump's health, mental or otherwise? I mean, the New York Times wrote a big piece about it yesterday. So I don't know that they're not focused on it. I mean, I think that polling suggests that most average people are not, they don't think that Donald Trump is too old. 40+% do, but a lot of those people are Democrats. It is not like a 70 or 75% issue. So that will draw, I think the media covers things that they think the public cares about. So there's going to be a lot of immigration coverage, a lot of abortion coverage, a lot of economy, inflation coverage. There might be less health coverage because that's just not something that people care about. But I will note, it is not great that we have the oldest person ever who would be the oldest person ever to serve as president. And we know less about his current health and his medical history than any modern president. And he has a history of either obfuscating, lying, or exaggerating about his health. Not a great combo. Alan Daly. Alan, thank you so much for the donation. Excited to have bumped in your live stream. It's 3:15 a.m. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. What effect would it have if the U.S. had an independent AEC plus universal voting as we do in Australia? So if we had kind of mandatory voting. So right now, about 60% of people who are eligible to vote in a presidential election. It's lower than that in a midterm election. If everyone voted, so I'm speaking in broad generalization, so please take this with a grain of salt, and I'm doing it off the top of my head. But if I had to say, who is the most likely person who's eligible to vote, who doesn't vote, the answer would be young people, men, and minorities, African Americans and Hispanics. Those voters, young people, and certainly African Americans, a little less true Hispanics, but still true, tend to be more Democratic voters, just looking at what the people in those categories who do vote, who they vote for. So if we made voting mandatory, my guess would be it would help Democrats a little bit. But I don't know. It's a fascinating question. I don't think we're ever going to do it, but thank you for staying up at 3:15 in the morning. Dave Collier. Dave, thank you for the donation. Do you have any insights into the campaign's ground game? I heard that the GOP outsourced most of it to PACs. That is true. So Harris's campaign is running a much more traditional ground game, run through the campaign, really well funded. Campaigns in the past have. Trump has never been a huge believer in ground games, to be honest. 2016, he really didn't have any. 2020 had a little bit better, but not great. 2024 is probably a little better than 2020, but not amazing. So I think the advantage goes to Harris on ground game. That said, Trump has, as I've said before, Trump has overperformed his polling in 2016 and 2020. So even if doesn't have a great apparatus to get out the vote, it kind of gets out, the vote gets out itself, at least it has. So maybe it doesn't matter. And maybe we're focusing too much on the ground game. I don't know. The way I was taught was if it's a close election, the side with the better turnout operation would win. Makes sense, right? You find more of your voters and get them to vote. I don't know if that's true with Donald Trump. There's so many things that Trump has shown he's sort of immune to political gravity on that I wonder. But that'd be my take. Let's see. Questions. Matthew White, what is your perspective on introducing term limits for Supreme Court justices? I think it's probably a good idea that won't happen. And I don't know how long you set. Like, do you do 20 years? Do you do 30 years? Do you do 10 years? I don't know the answer to that. Or do you have like an age limit? Like once you get to 70 or 75, you have to retire. I don't know how you would do it. And I think it's going to be really hard to change the law. I get the appeal of it, because we've seen, if a justice from one party dies while another party's president is in office, we obviously see what happens there with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the way in which the court's makeup has changed. But so I think it's probably a good idea, but I'm not sure it will actually happen. By the way, we're up to 500. Well, we were 500 people on this live, which is amazing. Okay. Let's keep the questions going. Let's see. By the way, just always, if you have questions, put them in there. Pocket watch. Trump has great health. Some would say the greatest health anyone has ever had. Yes, that is a reference to Trump. So if you've forgotten, when Trump first ran in 2016, his longtime doctor put out a letter in which he said Donald Trump, if he is elected, would be the single most healthy person ever to be president of the United States, which is so ridiculous. Anyway, the doctor, who has since passed away, later said that Trump dictated the letter to him under pressure. Good times. Human NC. Do you think a second Trump term could shift the Democratic Party to the left as it did in his first term? Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I think that one of the lesser told but important stories of the Trump years, so I date that basically 2016 and now, is that he's radicalized a lot of Democrats. He's really pushed a lot of Democrats to the left. We saw it in 2020. You just had the Democratic Party has moved ideologically leftward. Now, the Republican Party, I guess, has moved ideologically rightward, although Trump, to me, isn't really a conservative. It's moved like ideologically more Trumpy. I don't know if that's right necessarily, like ideologically right, but yes, he has radicalized a number of Democrats who I think have taken positions on things. And Kamala Harris, by the way, is one of these, particularly when she ran for president in 2020, who took positions that are just not held by a majority of the American public. And I think that's one of the reasons this race is so close. So yeah, second term, I think that would absolutely happen. LJ, thank you for the donation. Would Biden step down so that Harris could be president? So back in July, when Biden stepped down, someone asked me, would it be politically advantageous for him to get out entirely so that she could be president? My initial answer to that was yes, only because there is something of a barrier she's got to get over in that she would be the first woman president as well as the first Black woman president. And maybe seeing her as president for a couple months would make people more comfortable with that. But Chuck Todd, my friend who works at NBC, said no, because then she'd really be responsible for all the problems, the economy, immigration, etc., that by the foreign policy that are happening in the world, whereas she's only kind of responsible for them now as the vice president. So I guess it kind of pick your poison there. I'm not totally sure, but no, he's not going to step down now. If he ever was going to, it was going to be right when he announced he was not running, but he's not going to. The notorious CRG. Seeing the feedback you got from your New York Times Harris video, seems like a lot of people thought you grade Trump on a curve while you grade Harris harshly. New York Times Harris video. I mean, I try to read all my feedback. I try not to grade Trump on a curve. By the way, thank you for that donation. I try not to grade Trump on a curve. I think that He has shown a radicalness both in office and in the things he has proposed and the way that he talks about the presidency that we've never seen before in American politics, at least for a major party nominee. He lies all the time. He makes outlandish claims like he invented the question mark. And I try to call that stuff out through video, through written word, all that stuff. The thing that I struggle with is there's an element of people who say like Donald Trump is bad and therefore you can't really say anything critical of Kamala Harris because Donald Trump is so bad and she's the only other option that you can't criticize her. Like, to me, it's a big job to be the next president of the United States. It's a lot of responsibility. So I think we need to ask questions of both of them. Even if I do have my views on Trump, I still think we have to ask questions of both. And I think a lot of Democrats especially are like, how dare you question her because Donald Trump is going to turn us into a fascist state. I don't think Donald Trump is going to turn us into a fascist state. I do think Donald Trump has dictatorial impulses. I just don't know that the structures of our civil society will crumble under him. But I also don't think that excuses Kamala Harris from making a positive case and vision for what she would do if she was president and explain her views in the past and why they're different than her views now. Like, I just don't think you don't get to question one of the two people running for president because the other one is bad. I don't know. That's not me. Brendan Fleming. Brendan, thank you for the donation. Very kind of you. Brendan says, thanks for everything, Chris. Does the jobs report released this morning make any difference for this month? What do you think of the port strike getting diverted? Sorry if this has already been asked. So on the port strike thing, basically, it's good for Kamala Harris that it's over. You don't want that going on and people, not being able to get goods and stuff right before the election. On the jobs report. So I'm writing in my nightly newsletter, which comes out at 7:30 p.m. on Eastern time on my Substack. I'm actually writing something right now about the jobs report. One, I'll give you a preview. So there's a sentence in the New York Times news story on it. Let me find it. That goes like this. Come on, Chris. Okay, I'm quoting the New York Times. In fact, the jobs report, reinforced that by many measures, the job market is as healthy as it has ever been. Huge. The Harris campaign should take that and run it relentlessly. Now, it's the New York Times, so it wouldn't convince some people, but that's a pretty good thing to have a month before the election. There still remains this divide because, like, on things like the unemployment rate, which went down in this report, job growth, which was up 254,000, wage growth, which is up 0.4% month over month. On a lot of those things, like leading economic indicators are good, but they've been good, but these are even better. The problem is that for a lot of people, the economy equals I went to the grocery store and milk was 50 cents more than it used to be, or I used to spend $100 on my weekly groceries. Now I spend $125. So yes, I looked at the consumer price index, the price, a broad scale thing of how much things are costing. It's going down, way down from August 2022, but it's still higher than it was when Trump was president. So, it's kind of like pick your version of events. But look, to me, a report like this, the Harris people should flack it like crazy and say, look, the economy is good. It's getting better. And inflation is coming down. Prices are coming down. No, they're not where we need them to be yet, but we're moving in the right direction. So, Brendan, that's what I would take from it. Okay. Maxwell Feiner, will J.D. Vance be the 2028 nominee for president? If Donald Trump wins and J.D. Vance is the vice president, he has an absolute inside track Vance has an inside track to be the nominee in 2028. If Trump loses, I think it's Vance will probably run in 2028, but I think it's a much, much more open primary. I don't think Vance walks to the nomination in 2028, even if Trump wins in November, but he definitely he probably starts out as the front runner. If not, I think that it's a wide open race, but I think Vance either way runs. Either way. Phil Reinhardt, on Substack today, you said recalibration after the election. Maybe combine yours and Gabe Fleischer's Substacks to take some pressure off you and double the subscription value. Yeah, I mean, Gabe has 40,000 subscribers. I have 20,000. So I don't think he's going to want to do that, but I appreciate the suggestion. Yeah, all I meant by that is not that I'm going to stop doing any of this stuff, but I do need to figure out sort of what's the right balance of these things. Should I make a video every single day? Is that what people want? Is that going to help me grow. Cause I got to keep the way that YouTube works. If you don't know, is you just need more subscribers and more views. It's not complicated. The more views you get, the more subscribers you get, the better it does in the algorithm. The better it does in the algorithm, the more subscribers you get, the way they sell ads against it. It's when it works right, virtuous circle. On Substack, I'm writing 3-ish things a day. It's a lot, and the question is, how do I fit all of these different things in terms of return on investment? So yeah, I love that idea, but I don't think,